Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to Real Estate 101 with Brooke Boone. I am Brooke Boone, and I am so happy that you guys decided to join me today. Please remember to subscribe to my new YouTube channel, Real Estate 101 with Brooke Boone. Who is Brooke Boone? I am a top producing real estate agent here in the Mid-South. I service Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. And you guys already know that I would love to be your realtor. Today, I am so excited. I have on a really special guest. Her name is Theresa. Hello, Theresa.
Hi, Brooke.
So, tell the people, who are you and what do you do?
I am Theresa Lucas. I am a broker with Patterson Homes Real Estate Company. I service Tennessee and Mississippi. I am a top producer in our area, multi-million dollar producer, and I am a local investor. So,
Well, welcome. We
Thank
are so glad to have you.
glad to be here.
So we are going to talk about a really important topic. We are going to speak about some injustices and discrimination in real estate. Theresa and I thought that this was a very important topic that needs to be discussed, just to get more awareness, and more information out there for our consumers in the city of Memphis, especially which is a huge city for civil rights, the Fair Housing Act, some of the major historical events have taken place in the city of Memphis. And so we're going to talk about some of those things. So I'm really excited. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
So the first thing that we want to discuss that's been in recent news is issues with appraisals.
Yes.
So what have you seen? What have you noticed, Theresa?
Oh, my goodness. The appraisers, we have some challenges that I think the board, our local board, definitely has become more aware of. But what we see is when there are people of color in some of these homes, that they tend not to appraise for as much as their white counterparts, right? So I actually had an experience with a client whose home appraised low. They had photos of themselves up. The husband was actually at home, and we got a very different number than what we were expecting based on local comps. We found that it's kind of hard to contest those appraisals. The appraisers really seem to have the final word, and we're working on making changes to that
Ways
system.
to kind of overcome some of that. I know there was a case that I read about not that long ago, and I think there's a huge lawsuit being filed. What happened, the family, they got an appraisal on the property. They had all of their pictures up, and when they got the appraisal back, it was, I believe, and I'm not, quoting specifics, but when they got the appraisal back, it was like really low, like $125,000 lower
Yes.
than, like you said, some of the comparables. And so they decided to remove all of the photographs out of the house, and I believe they replaced the photographs with a white family, like they
Yes.
were a white family.
Yes.
And same property appraisal came back at the value that they believed that it was going to be. And so we do want to make people aware that things like this go on.
Right.
That's why it's important to have the information when you're working with a real estate agent, that they have the information that they need to really be able to assist you. Also, your lenders, in choosing lenders to work with, because of the appraisal, because we know that the bank is not going to pay more for a property than it's worth. And you know, all of this ties to generational wealth, because if you're selling a property and the value is comes back $100,000 lower,
Yes.
than your a white counterpart, then you know what happens. You lose all of that value.
Absolutely.
Um, Forced out of family homes is a topic that a lot of people talk about. You know, grandma leaves a home. This has been all over the internet recently. Grandma has a home. It's all these people on Facebook saying, don't sell grandma's home, or don't let grandma's home go to tax sale, right?
Right. Right. So we have some issues in our community with planning, wills, estate planning, life insurance. These are all things that you can use to combat these issues, right? Sometimes people are inheriting these homes and they don't have the financial resources to
Right, correct.
pay the taxes or to have the repairs done. And so oftentimes they will let those homes fall to the wayside and in disrepair. They will lose them at tax sales. They'll sell them for well below market to investors. I think there needs to be more education in the community about how to prepare to take over homes when people pass.
And it, you know, that's how Memphis has become one of the top investment cities. I mean, I'm an investor, you're an investor.
Right.
People are able to buy all of these distressed properties because they haven't been taken care of. Grandmother passes away. There's nobody there to, you know, do the upkeep of the house, even if it's paid off. People say, well, the property is paid off, but just because it's paid off does not mean that there's not upkeep that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
The taxes still have to be paid. The property has to be maintained. And when it's not maintained and these things happen, then unfortunately the family doesn't get to keep that property, and you know, it doesn't stay there with the generation, and
Right.
they're not able rather to get the generational wealth that some other races are, you know, are able to keep properties in their families.
So I'm going to tell you something that I learned when I got into real estate that I really was not aware of before concerning the homes, parents, grandparents' homes, and the maintenance. A lot of people of other ethnicities are educated on their options as far as home repairs. So I come across a lot of people every day, people of color, that don't know that you can take out home equity lines of credit or do a cash out refi on your home to
Maybe pay for some of those repairs.
to
Absolutely.
where it's not so cumbersome. It's doesn't turn into a huge issue later on. That they can do smaller maintenance jobs on the front end. People just aren't even aware that that's something that they could do. So you can really start to work on those things long before grandma passes, right? Getting to a good attorney to do some estate planning and not allowing homes to go into probate or to have 5 or 10 children that are now all heirs to this property and no one wants to pay. We have to do better with planning on the front end.
Absolutely. I agree with that. During COVID, it was a really scary time for a lot of people. And if people were passing away and if you didn't have those things set in place, then it really could cause a disturbance in families. There are a lot of good attorneys that work in this city that are able to do trust, putting properties in trust, and then having a person that is going to be the successor of the trust. And when you do this, it does not mean that every heir will not get a piece of the pie. It just means that it allocates one person that is going to control the estate so that, like you just mentioned, it's taken care of, the taxes are paid, there is upkeep to the property, and that way if the family does decide to sell the property, that they can get a good market value for the property
Correct.
instead of just selling it, or basically giving it away. At
Yes.
least they can capitalize off of a property that their grandmother or great grandmother worked very hard to have for them.
Absolutely.
So, and let's talk about something that we mentioned
Okay.
earlier today. We talked about um, down payment assistance programs.
Yes.
And so I want to get your opinion about some of the down payment assistance programs.
I think that down payment assistance programs can be good, viable options for
Absolutely.
buyers.
Absolutely.
I have clients that use them on a regular basis. However, I feel like the product itself is often misrepresented.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a better option than you saving your own money, pooling your own resources to finance your down payment and your closing costs, but it's definitely better than renting. So what I believe people don't know is that the money is not necessarily free. Even if it's a forgivable loan, if it's a lien that will fall off in several years, the less of your own money that you put into a transaction, into a property, the higher your interest rate is going to be. So you kind of end up paying a little bit more for that
Okay.
in the long run. But again, it's better than renting, right? You'll never recoup any money from being a renter.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say that this is why it's very important to select really high qualified real estate agents like myself and you, Theresa, because you want to be represented by someone. Now, my clients and your clients both utilize down payment assistance programs.
Yes.
However, they need to actually know the specifics of what they're signing up for, because if you decide that you want to sell in X amount of years, you need to know that sometimes, like you said, that lien is going to be on that property, and so you will still have to pay off that second mortgage. Great option, but like you said, I do agree with you that it's just a better option to start planning to save. I mean,
Yes.
home ownership is important. There is a need for more homes to be built in predominantly African American communities.
So it's a vicious cycle. And that's why we really have to work on the breakdown in the appraisal system. If builders can't get the values to build that
Absolutely.
home in Whitehaven
Absolutely.
that they can to build it in East Memphis, it's going to discourage them. So the development will go to other areas. It'll go to Arlington and Lakeland.
Absolutely.
And it, I don't
Because
know
they're
if
not
it's-
gonna want they're not going to want to build because the property is not going to appraise, and they're not going to get the money that they need to get from
No.
that's just the bottom line. People are in business to make money, and if you're in one area and you can make this off of a new construction home, but if you're in a predominantly African American area and you can't get the property to appraise, then where are you going to build it?
Right. There is a builder that has been building in Diamond Estates recently that's building very nice, quality, beautiful homes. Those homes in any other area would be $100,000 plus more than what they are in Diamond Estates, and they're still struggling to get the values that they need. Doesn't make sense. The materials cost the same, the labor costs the same, the demand for the homes is there. Why won't they appraise?
That is a really good question, because like I said, I don't understand. When I checked the value of my parents' home in Whitehaven, it was around 250. If for a 2,500 square foot home, if that same home was in Cordova, it would be 450. It makes no sense. There is no facts to prove why this home should cost this amount in this area and this home should cost this amount in this area. It's something that we have that has just been going on for years, and when you look at it, it's an injustice. It's an injustice because I will inherit that home, but the value of that home is not like a home in East Memphis or Cordova.
And you do, if you look in other neighborhoods in our area, you have smaller homes. with fewer amenities that go for much higher prices. And it really doesn't quite make sense as to how they're arriving at these figures. You know, they say it's supply and demand, but again, the demand is there in both areas. Why is this price per square foot lower? I think it really needs to be evaluated.
It does. And we're talking about these issues or these things to bring awareness.
Yes.
It is very important for our clients to have awareness, people in the community to have awareness. Let's talk a little bit more, and I know we kind of touched on this, but about why it's so important to have great representation in a real estate transaction. One thing we had mentioned was, okay, sometimes investment, selling your property to an investor is the best option.
Yes.
For the family. Okay, we understand that. But what can we do to make sure that, or what can consumers do to make sure that they are not forced out or not, that they are getting good, decent value for their property instead of just taking, 30,000. I got a call the other day, and one of my sorority sisters said that her uncle or cousin, somebody, had sold a family house that was worth like $150,000 for $30,000.
Wow.
And I mean, whatever investor bought that property is like, woo. But how ethical was that?
Yeah, I don't know the situation to say how ethical that may have been, but I will say this: in order to combat those type of situations, you really need to work with a realtor that's going to educate you. If you,
Yes.
I'm really big on client education. If people know all of their options, they can make an informed decision and the one that's best for them, right?
Right.
So, I don't know what kind of repairs that home needed.
Absolutely. And maybe ethical wasn't the best
no.
word of choice.
Sometimes it is.
But my point to that is, did that person really know the value of the home to be able to make a good decision about the price that they should be selling the home for?
No, but sometimes our people are afraid to reach out. And I try to stress to them, information has never hurt anyone, right? Mm-hmm. Just find out. Reach out to a realtor, someone that you trust, to give you that information. Again, what are my options? Can you run a CMA on my home? If you have a relationship with a good realtor, they should be able to do that for you, free of charge, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes people are afraid of the fees to work with a realtor. But let's say the fees to work with an agent, let's say it's $7,500 to list the home, to have a selling agent and a buying agent, right?
Right.
What if you're losing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in your home by not working with an agent?
Absolutely.
How does that make sense to do? You're paying for the expertise. Reach out, allow someone to help you.
Absolutely. I agree. So there's another topic that I wanted to talk about today. There's all kinds of myths that people believe when it comes to selecting. I have heard this, and this happens a lot. It doesn't happen as much in Mississippi and Tennessee with my clients, but in Arkansas, I have heard out of people's mouths that another agent that is another race can help get them something better than an African American agent. And these are coming from African American people. So
Yes.
they still have this mentality, this old way of thinking that someone, just because they're white or another race, they can help them get something better. What are your thoughts on that?
I have experienced the same thing, and I would say to qualify your agent on more than race. So you can host interviews, you can have questions, see what resources they have, compare the information, but to assume based on color seems like a tragic flaw.
It does. It's a very old way of thinking. It doesn't. First of all, it's discrimination. It's discriminatory against your own race, and it's a prejudice way of thinking that an agent that's African American, such as you and I, would not be as qualified as a person of another race. I like to work with all people. I have
too.
worked with all people in really, different ethnicities, and I hope that people are able to choose me to be their realtor based on my skill set,
Absolutely.
and not because I'm black.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
this has been like really good information. And I want to, I guess we should talk about ways to overcome as real estate agents in this community that we service, Tennessee and Mississippi for you, and Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas for myself. What are some things that we can do as real estate agents to overcome some of these injustices?
Oh my goodness. I would say the largest issue is losing the family homes to the investors. That's something that's 100% within your control and preventable, right? More so than on the appraisal side. That's a systemic issue. But in combating the loss of that generational wealth, as you said, we lose a lot of equity that way. People really need to start planning ahead of time. We need to prioritize those things. So I don't fully understand why we shy away from it, but being educated on life insurance, being educated on your estate planning, again, having a consultation with a realtor or an attorney to put your affairs in order.
Okay.
That is a fantastic way to start recouping a lot of that lost money. Again, I'm an investor. I believe in investors and a need for them. Sometimes homes are so heavily distressed that
Absolutely.
that is the best option for the community, right? An
Absolutely.
owner occupant does not have the resources to go in and put in up front to make that a viable home. But there are a lot of homes that would be great for owner occupants, right? And people are saying, well, it was a cash deal. I've been told cash is better.
It's all cash at the end.
It's all cash at the end when you deposit it, right?
Right.
So I was like, no. Waiting an extra 30 days for an extra $50,000 is big, right? What else are you going to do in 30 days to make $50,000?
Absolutely.
They really need to get with someone that can guide them. I would say that's my best advice. Once they gather all the information, and I have these consultations all of the time, they can make a decision. They can go back to their families. They can start to structure things. And I'm going to tell you, in a time of grief, when you have lost someone, it's a blessing to have your affairs in order.
Absolutely.
To see the destruction that it causes within families, to, again, people, they are kind of scrambling, right? They may not have the resources.
And that's the
available.
last thing that you need to be scrambling around with.
Yes, yes. So I would say to start there.
To piggyback on, very, very good answer, Theresa. To piggyback on some of the things that you said, I feel like we need to, I know there's real estate lobby day at the Capitol.
Yes.
We have these things as real estate agents, and I'll be the first to admit I've not participated in something like that yet, but I plan to in the future. And I think that it's important that we show up in large groups to advocate for our communities in Nashville, in Washington, because our communities are really struggling. When you drive around Memphis, it breaks my heart when I drive down Elvis Presley and there's trash everywhere, overgrown lawn.
Yes, yes.
And then you drive down Poplar in Germantown and you don't see this.
This is true. Okay, I have some strong opinions on this. And I really do think it starts within us and our community.
Absolutely.
You teach people how to treat you.
Education is everything.
Yes. If you want to live in a nice community, don't move to one, create one.
Absolutely.
Right? I have a 6-year-old, and I teach my daughter all the time. You have a responsibility to your community, to your family, and to yourself, right? Your responsibility to your community is picking up the trash.
Not throwing it down in the first place.
Right, not throwing it down in the first place. But even if you didn't throw it down, right, we go out and
Absolutely.
we clean up within like a 2-3 block radius around our house. We pick up trash. You have to instill that in your children, a sense of value. Making sure the lawns are maintained. There's so many things that people could do to increase their values.
Absolutely.
My goodness. How inexpensive is it to have your weeds treated in your lawn, right?
Right.
It makes a huge difference in the community.
And to beautify neighborhoods. Now, I had heard, and I don't know a lot about this. I know that we're speaking in general terms right now, but there are some re-beautifying or grants and some of those things that are supposed to be out there. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to, for people to look into some of those to be able to beautify neighborhoods and stuff like that. But also, I wanted to say a little bit more about appraisals. It's very important to, if there's a time that you get an appraisal back and it's, first of all, what I do is I print out for my listings when I'm working with my clients, especially when I feel like it's going to be an issue. Like, it's kind of like you already know that it's going to be an issue.
I know what you're saying.
And so as a real estate agent, one thing that I do is I print out the comps and I leave them there for the appraiser. Absolutely. Or email them to the appraiser. And, there's been a couple of times where it's been real close